was time to find the mother. That's horrifying. Jesus. I know it's not exactly the same, but it reminds me of what's that film? Is it like Don't Blink or Don't Speak or something like that with the old blind man and the home intruders? The next one is by Sword Boy. John, the local lunch thief, frothed at the mouth as the rat poison in the chicken Alfredo did its work. Mitch, his co-worker, stared on in horror, knowing he never told his wife there was a lunch thief. Imagine her shock when the husband comes home. The next one is by Suvan Barn. I know you're scared, but I'll not turn on the lights until you say sorry like a responsible adult, the man said to his daughter. When the teenager didn't say sorry, he increased the speed of their car and continued to drive through the night storm with headlights turned off. That's insane. This one's by Smeg Buffer. I'm so, my grandmother gasped on her deathbed as she gently took my hand in hers and pulled me closer. Before I could lean in to hear her better, the world started spinning and my body suddenly felt cold and heavy as I looked up at myself finishing the sentence. Sorry. This one's by Dog Thief Mew. Robin was a fussy sleeper, always crying. Honestly, his mother could sympathize. So she made the bed more comfy with cozy blankets and a pillow. And for the first time in 3 months since they'd come back from the hospital, she awoke refreshed from a full night's sleep. That's really, really scary, but that one's like innocent in a way. She didn't know, instead of having malicious intent. Dog Penguin Zero. When I discovered the days-old bite on my 6-year-old's leg, she cried and pleaded with me. Please don't get mad at him. He even brushed his teeth before biting me. I found our dog curled away in the doghouse, growling and gnashing his foamed teeth. That's horrifying. Rabies. Run_rabbit_run. The DNA evidence was a match. The witness pointed at me Necessary underscore music 2136. I gave a meal to the homeless kid sleeping in the woods behind my cabin. Every midnight he knocks once, leaves a human limb on my porch and offers me a blood-soaked grin. The top comment says, "Aw, he's sharing." There's gonna be probably a lot of cuts in this video. I'm sorry guys. There seems to be a lot of traffic coming down my road today and it's super windy. So there's a lot of like different noises going on that I'm trying to avoid. Back, oh do. I finally met my husband's secret mistress. As an anesthesiologist, I made sure she felt every single cut of the emergency surgery my husband, the head surgeon, desperately performed to save that bitch and their unborn child. Yikes. Derby dash and dash sussy. When the princess drew her final breath, every single animal in the enchanted forest gathered faithfully around her bed. The winter had been long and merciless, and they were grateful for the feast she was about to provide. That one is wholesome to me in a way. If I were, you're gonna die anyway, and if she's in the middle of the forest, she probably doesn't have anyone to bury her, so I'd be happy to provide for the other beings of the forest. Ibuprofen Daddy, what a name. To combat overpopulation and the resulting famine, half of all newborn boys are required to be castrated. Testosterone makes the meat too dull. Jesus. Mediocre underscore metal underscore 7174. Scientists just proved that alternate universes exist and that ours is the wealthiest and most peaceful out of all of them. My god, that alone is a horror story. Unfortunately, the scientists in the alternate universe also just discovered this. What's that bitch? My toddler ran up to me in the backyard, mouth and hands smeared, dripping red, and happily said, "Daddy, the berries were juicy." Alarmed, I asked where she picked them, and she smiled and pointed to the ears of our faithful black lab. Oh god. That is sickening. Chemical dash elk dash 1299. As my dog lost its footing by the water, thrashing and whining as she slid beneath the crystal blue surface, I dove in to rescue her without a second thought. A mile back up the trail, another hiker could have sworn he heard something, as he gave a passing glance to a sign reading, "Caution, geothermal pools." Oh my goodness. It's a bad way to go. Pretty woman, walk a mile. I knew I had to kill the monster that murdered my wife. I entered the nursery as quiet as I could. It's classic, short but straight to the point. Silent underscore set underscore 2932. When I was 12, my parents always told me to give up on my dream of being a detective and try asked the genie to give me the ability to speak to and understand all animals. I had to burn all the CDs of whale song I used to fall asleep to. What they whispered was never meant to leave the depths. That one was by Ender Pimp 1991. Talonly one. My wife whispered softly, "I want to have another baby," in my ear while we were making love. Then I glanced out the window towards the shallow graves of the others at the end of the garden and replied, "Only if you promise to control your anger this time." Yikes. After weeks of... This one's by Monkey Joker 80. After weeks of irritation, I finally caught the tip of the hair in the corner of my eye and gave it a good hard yank. According to the doctor, the other end being wrapped around my optic nerve meant it acted like a little guillotine. Oh god, that makes me sick. That makes me sick. Ooh. Kangaroo tense. As the doctors tried to stop my bleeding, I asked my guardian angel, "Why don't you do something like you always did to save me for the past 9 months?" She waved her hand over my newborn son, making him breathe for the first time, and then turned to me saying, "I'm not yours." Oh my god, that one's clever. Logical dash roll 1382. When I found out my wife cheated with her boss and my baby boy was his, I swore I'd kill the fucker. With my finger on the trigger, I waited for the moment my wife lifted him out the stroller. Blue_Camellia. There's no anesthesiologist listed for this surgery, the nurse pointed out. Their supervisor had a look and said, "The patient is an infant. They don't feel pain." Oh my god. Positive-speech 5228. Grandma came into my room in the middle of the night and told me to follow her home, so I did. When the police found me the next day in the grass next to her grave, they were relieved I hadn't been murdered by my father like the rest of my family. Logical-roll 1382. She watched her twin sister's eyes close for the last time, the cancer finally winning. Knowing she was next, she wondered what their lives would have been like if they'd been born separately by the same person. When social services saw the girl's bed straps and bruises around her wrists and ankles, they took her into care. Finding her sleeping up against the ceiling, they realized the religious nonsense her father had spouted was true. This one is by Blue_Camilla. Camilla again. I recently found out I'm sterile and can't have fathered my 2 children, but my wife swears she's never cheated. She's so distraught that I'm inclined to believe her, was masturbating whilst listening to his neighbours having loud sex. Sometimes they went at it so hard the bottom of their mattress bumped the tip of his penis. That makes me sick. Mobile J77. Reckless drivers must pay child support when they kill a parent. It was only economical to save the mother of 3 and swerve into her children. Oh my god. That's crazy. That's also kind of good. Level QX. I watched my husband descend into the dark cave, and shortly after I heard him say through the walkie-talkie, "I must be the first one to set foot in here in thousands of years." "I know," I replied, and threw my walkie-talkie in after him and cut the rope. Let's do one more. Let's try and find a good one. Oh my god, okay, this one's quite a twist. Particular underscore froyo underscore 877. My wife and I submitted our DNA to Ancestry.com together, and I wish we hadn't. Correction. My thought-to-be dead sister and I submitted our DNA to Ancestry.com together, and I wish we hadn't. Okay, now this is going to be the last one because I've just seen it and it's insane. His biological role again. When he came home early and saw his wife in bed with another man, he grabbed his shotgun and emptied both barrels into them. A few days later, his lawyer said, "Forensics have just confirmed you shot one of the city's